Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with our poetry reading tonight. We want to thank you all for coming out. And I know some of you are here who are not here for the reading, and that's okay because maybe this is your first time at a poetry reading. And we're glad to have you. Stick around. Normally, I have another microphone right here and a sidekick. And my sidekick, Leslie Luprack, is out of town at the moment. She's up on the other side of Gatlinburg at Pigeon Forge with her husband and in-laws. So I get to do this solo tonight. But anyway, we'll be thinking about her. Tonight we have a special guest from all the way from Chicago, the Windy City, the place that, somebody from Chicago, okay. Anyway, we've got Bill Yarrow here with us. Bill and I have corresponded off and on, and he has work in the last issue of Iodine Poetry Journal that came out last May, and can't believe it's been over a year now since I retired the magazine. But hey, you never know what's going to happen with that. I like to say that iodine is a state of mind. Yeah, I know Scott loved that one. So anyway, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about Bill. Bill Yarrow is a professor of English at Joliet Junior College and an editor at the online journal Blue Fifth Review. He is the author of, is it The Vig of Love?
Vig.
The Vig of Love. And this is his latest book, correct?
Yes.
And he's got copies of this. He's got a CD up here with music and poetry on it. It looks cool. So he's got those for sale, but he's got, but he also is the author of Blasphemer, Pointed Sentences, and 5 chapbooks. Most recently, we all saw it coming. His work also appears in the anthologies and Aeolian Heart, This is Poetry, The Midwest Poets, and Beginnings, How 14 Poets Got Their Start. And he's been widely published. He's been nominated for Pushcart Prizes a number of times, and he has another full-length Against Prompts forthcoming from Lit Press next year. Please welcome Bill Yarrow to the microphone.
Great, thanks a lot. Hi everybody, thank you all for coming out. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really happy to be in Huntersville and to be in North Carolina. I'm going to read some poems from 2 of my books, and then a couple from my chapbook, and then a few new poems. So I'm going to start with this poem from Blasphemer. That's Blasphemer, this poem is called "There's No Crying in Poetry." There's no crying in poetry. There's no crying in poetry, says Coach Bukowski, barnacle gnarled, stomping on the ground behind third base. But the poetry pitcher is crying. The poetry catcher is sobbing. The poetry shortstop is bawling. The poetry center fielder is doubled over, weeping bitterly. Bukowski shakes his head. Jesus, how the hell did I wind up here? He yells, hey, there's no crying in fucking poetry, you hear me? But no one on the poetry team is listening. But in the beer garden across the street, the bar poets, looking up, are waving gloves at the ball sailing toward them. They stretch their hands above their heads and call out, I got it. No, I got it. I said I got it. And then they collide and lie like kinks in a tangled hose. The ball lands and takes a bad hop, hits the barmaid smack on the lip. Don't you cry. Don't you dare, she hears Bukowski saying. And though it really hurts, and though she really wants to, she doesn't. Thank you. Now, when you put out books, you have to go to your friends or associates or people that you know or other writers that can somehow contact and ask them for blurbs for the back of your book. And most of these blurbs are very, very complimentary. In fact, you might think that every writer that you look at is just up for the Nobel Prize from the effusiveness and the loveliness of these blurbs, which, you know, Hemingway or Faulkner or Eliot. They never got blurbs like this. You know? Anyway, I've noticed over the years that the blurbs have gotten a little edgier, a little less kind, a little more stringent, and so this poem is called The New Blurb. It has a epigraph, which is, "The old blurb is predictable in its praise and universally ignored." This is the new blurb. 1. This book touches your heart, but not in a good way. 2. Every day, I thank God that books like this are hard to find. 3. To give you a sense of how infectious this book is, after I read it, I felt sick. 4. There's nothing that can be said about this book that hasn't already been said about some other book. 5. This is just the kind of book I never read, and you should too. 6. This book does the work of imagination for you, in that it's hard to imagine how it could be any worse. 7. If I truly understood all that's in this book, I would go mad, and I don't have the insurance coverage for that. 8. I found this book, being not hard to write, very easy to ignore. 9. Don't let the fact that the writing in this book is terrible dissuade you from buying it. Support independent presses. 10. This book proves the truth of the falsehood. Anyone can be a writer. So, I'm getting older, as we all are, and this poem is called Antigone Détente. I'm that age, I guess. People keep asking me what I want for my funeral. I don't give a shit. Let the dogs lick my bones, throw my ashes out the window. If I die in the autumn, rake orange leaves over my arms. Sure, put my clavicle on your mantle. Feel free to laminate my lungs. Toss my heart off the dock. Use me if you run out of dark molasses or caulk. Make origami, or a caftan, or wicker furniture, or a reku pot of me. Tan my hide, feed me to rabid macaques, dissolve me in nitric acid, water the garden of my face. Give Achilles free rein to drag me through the mud. Don't feel guilty, it's okay, really. I, Priam, absolve you. So they asked his wife and daughters and sons what they wanted for their father, and they said, bury the bastard. Serves him right for being glib.
That's great.
Well, poetry's about all kinds of subjects, and you may recognize some of these subjects. The title of this poem comes from the last line of Jean-Paul Sartre's play, No Exit. Do you remember the last line? Anybody remember? Last line is, hell is other people. Okay. So my poem is, poetry is other people. Is there nothing out there but misery? Tales of human fading, nomenclatures of a fallen body. Even if we forbade the saddest subjects, the tornadoes would still be there, the typhoon, the mudslide, the angry snow squall, the red volcano, the bridge collapsing, the window crashing onto the sidewalk, the flames leaping from roof to roof, from car to car, from tree to tree, insolent and snickering, would still be there. The poems that are not destruction, what are they but decay? Did you read the one about the depression of the poet's brother? The one about the bulimia of the poet's daughter? The one about the alcoholism of the poet's mother? The one about the leukemia of the poet's father? The one about the dementia of the poet's grandmother? The one about the divorce of the poet's sister? The one about the autism of the poet's nephew? The one about the drowning of the poet's uncle? The one about the diabetes of the poet's aunt? The one about the disappearance of the poet's neighbor? The one about the incarceration of the poet's friend? The one about the suicide of the poet? We live where it's light, but right where it's dark. Thrill at the thundercloud, shun the sunshine, pine for midnight, worship the ontology of catastrophe. The poet says, somebody's done for. The poet says, you must change your life. The poet says, my mind's not right. The poet says, I weep like a child for the past. The poet says, I must lie down where all the ladders start. The poet says, if I stepped out of my body, I would break.
Wow.
And I am a big fan of poets, but I'm also a big fan of prose writers. And one of my favorite prose writers is Gustave Flaubert, and one of my favorite works by Flaubert is not a work by Flaubert, but his letters. So this poem picks up a line from one of his letters. The poem is called Flaubert Eats Breakfast with His Mom. They were sitting at the breakfast table, waiting for more toast, when she looked up at him and said, your mania for sentences has dried up your heart. That's not true, Mother. Louise did that, and Gout of the middle class. You're just upset my fruit bowl is empty. Come, my darling, let's take a walk in the garden and water the desert of my heart. The future may surprise us yet. Gustave, my son, my star, you're incorrigible. Yes, Mother, I am. But give me your arm. The eggs will have to wait. Look, the sun is bleeding on the flowers. The clouds, soft guardians of virtue, they will protect us. God is out walking his dog, while over us white bees hover like angels of clotted milk. So those were from Blasphemer, and let me read you a few from The Vig of Love. So what is a vig? It is a loan shark term for the interest that you have to pay weekly. And the idea of the book is that love is a debt that you won't be able to repay. You won't even be able to repay the interest on that loan. And so it's organized into a couple of sections that have financial themes. So the first poem in the book is called A Debt No Honest Man Can Pay. I'm sitting here listening to Nebraska, and it's breaking my heart, not because it's plaintive and brilliant, but because it's taking me back to 1982, and our baby, not even 2 pounds, in intensive care in New York Hospital, far away. We live in Queens. Well, it's what we can afford, but we see her every day. Well, one of us does, via the subway, where I sit listening to Nebraska. And Springsteen is singing about paying a debt no honest man can pay. And I'm thinking, what is that debt? It's marriage, right? It's love, right? It's the privilege of having a kid, right? Not in the song, but in life, in someone's life, in my life. It's a debt, a brutally honest debt, but you never pay it back. No one can. Not with money, not with time, not with compassion, not with care, not with what I make, not even with what you make. I'm not talking hospital bills. I'm talking what forever can never be repaid. So listen. You listen to a song whose line hits you in your kidney, and you double over as if you're pregnant, a pregnant woman, not close enough to term, but you birth something anyway. And one day, it becomes your heart. And then your heart gets pregnant, and it gives birth to your future, which you learn is made entirely of your past. A past where you're listening to a song, a concept, a whole album, again and again, over and over, the album, Nebraska, which never gets dull, never gets tired, never gets old.
Wow.
Thank you. And this poem is called Rattlesnake Pancakes.
Yum.
I don't usually take bets, but I took this one. Gobbo bet me a melamite ring I wouldn't eat a rattlesnake pancake. Normally I'm cautious, but I needed a gift for Emily Beth, and her father being a miner, she had a thing for melamite. The thing on my plate was as dry as a dying scab, and it tasted as vile as it looked. But I got one swallow down, and then 20 followed in slow succession. I felt queasy, but Gabo never guessed. When 5 hours later I was still alive, he handed over the ring. I ran to Emily Beth's mom's place on Arapahoe. I found her sitting on a two-person glider on the wraparound porch. Emily Beth, I got a ring for you. Oh, blister. However did you afford a ring of melamite? That just heats my heart. Maybe so, Emily Beth, but are you tepid enough to wed? A gift is not a liberty, blister. I'll not marry you until Father Life has sucked the selfish out your soul. Selfish? Selfish? I ate snake poison for you. Yeah, but you didn't die, did you? So what's the good of that? And this one is called, thank you. And this one is called The Basement of Desire. There's a poem by William Carlos Williams called The Attic of Desire, but I wanted to write a different kind of poem. The Basement of Desire. Sooner or later, you realize that all the leftover wood you've been saving, all the scraps of PVC pipe in the utility closet, all the plumbing nuggets you've tucked away, all the used sandpaper, loose roofing nails, railroad spikes, iron filings, copper battery caps, coils of solder, cylinders of tin, carafes of glue, single hinges, tubs of bulbs, nylon cord, bladeless hacksaws, rusted caulk guns, bent nails, blunt screws, broken hammers, brittle gaskets, sleeves of galvanized washers, leftover shims, insulation kits, cans of mineral spirits, screen door hardware, drawers of squeeze nozzles, noxious solvents. The whole haberdashery of plastic pieces, sheathing connectors, and containers is just a metaphor of shifting meaning, representing sequentially and recursively your childhood, your body, your marriage, and your mind. I know a lot of poets, I read a lot of poems, I read a lot of their poems, and boy, just some of them they just kill me. They just kill me. This is called Libby, Lottie, and Carlotta. Libby tried divination, no answer. Lottie turned to numerology, a big 0. Carlotta was interested in philately, but she found that sticky. Stay away from miracles, Libby. Do not tattoo the future, Lottie. What doesn't kill you will make you cocky, Carlotta. Biology is destiny to this extent. Our bodies lead us places we otherwise wouldn't go. Darkness is a long arc, my darlings. No one escapes the entry into dirty sex, but you control the ugliness of the encounter. Pain is never love. I don't care what others say. It hurts my heart to read your poems. You deserve a knight, a Christ, commensurate with your beauty, someone halfway decent. Listen, there's a place where parents don't drink, where uncles don't rape, where brothers don't die. Where is it? All I know is it's not on the floodplain. And there are a series of poems in this volume about a character named Cranshaw, and so this is one called Cranshaw on a Boat. We are floating on the chain of lakes, eating Rice Krispies out of a bucket. The sun is a soft lozenge, medicating a bright red sky. Water skiers hold on to their slackening ropes like love itself. On Party Island, the icy drunks have seized control. Cranshaw has his hand inside Margaret. No one is shocked, he was born brazen. But when he starts in on the Jews, Arnie gets mad and pushes him over the side. We let him tread water, then swing around to pick him up. Justice? Regret? No. Margaret wants him back. This is the poem that appeared in Iodine Journal, and thank you, Jonathan, for inviting me, for publishing me in Iodine, and for your friendship and everything. Thank you. It's called Eli in the Middle of the Night. I stood beneath a mountain in a flank of malefactors. The sun stood in the sky like Eli in the middle of the night. 3 times. 3 times. 3 times God called to me from the thunderstorm of good and evil, but my ears were filled with songs of wounded birds and the howls of dying dogs. I stood in the city, in the fields, in the stillness of a regnant rain, silent among the slaughtered beasts. I stood like Eli in the middle of the night. So here are a couple of new pieces, and then I want to finish up with some poems from a chapbook that I just had published by a very interesting poet and a very interesting project, which I'll tell you about in just a minute. So this one is called The Whole Debt. Just as I was launching my life, extending the web of my friendships, adding magicians, librarians, architects, horticulturalists, house lawyers, horse lawyers, CIOs, videographers, EFL instructors, instructional designers, just when the langoustines had me by the throat, when the side exits were all blocked, when the nacreous clouds began to move in, when the power grid was stretched to breaking, when the atrial gas main was poised for rupture, when the mad river was rising, when the medallions on my palms had started to itch, just when the air was loud with the sound of invisible mockery, when the world, paralyzed by littleness, was becoming dull, when all the birds headed for the bourbon hidden in the corn, when cheers of ill will resounded from the abandoned sawmill, when craven acolytes were craving ions, just when the sky was dark with birds, with the ground black with snakes, the river choked with otters, the mesa teeming with beetles, the mountains pocked with bees, my step-parents slammed the door of the oven of the souffle of death, and the feisty yeast of conjured life began to rise. And this poem is called Neural Tones. A rose is a rose is a rose, wrote Gertrude Stein. I prefer Wanda Lafan's version. Eros is Eros is Eros, she said, sitting next to me in a dark patisserie, where we were listening to a torch singer light the gloom of our recent divorces. My divorce was 2 months older than hers, but we were both still in the infancy of our dissolutions, the infected flecks of sour love still visible on both of our chins. Who's your favorite poet, I asked during the lull. I'm into the vegan poet, Tofu, she says. What about you? I'm heavily invested in the Wall Street poet, Tal Jones. She tries to smile. What do you most regret? Regret? About horror? Not being kinder to her, I guess. She quotes Dr. Johnson to me. Kindness is in our power. Fondness is not. That pretty much sums it up, I moan. She puts her hidden arms around me, and I reciprocate. It would have been rude not to. Look at us, she murmurs. Tristan and Isolde, without the adultery. Well, you can't have everything. No? I heard otherwise. Then frozen dawn waltzed into the bakery, and against all good sense, I arose and arose and arose. I just celebrated 41 years of marriage. Poems are not real. They're not real. This is called All About the Tumor. Stupidity is not a mask. It is the face, and it is the face that betrays us, always. That is the lesson of mirrors. I was apoplectic about corruption. I appealed to outside magic, ideas bright and dark. Sonia solaced me. Flirting with eternity, strangling the larynx of the sky, I stood on edges and matriculated loneliness. I read in the phonemes of the trees, happiness is the habit of right reason, practicing vice. My course was set. I fell in with felons. Good enough chaps, but derogatory, lived on the verge of explosion. They sequenced my DNA, for it was all about the tumor, you see. For the health of the state, it had to be ripped away. We used mindfulness. I recuperated in Sonia's arms. Some days we think back and remember Abelard. It's a wonderful life until it's not. So this chapbook I was telling you about, mine is called We All Saw It Coming. But the poet Bill Allegrezza from Northwest Indiana conceived this project of publishing 100 political chapbooks for the first 100 days of the Trump presidency and mailing each of them separately to the White House, which he has done. He's published more than 100. He's published 116 so far. There's about 20 more, and he's still open for submissions. Any chapbooks on any kind of related to, something somewhat political, doesn't have to necessarily be written in response to the Trump presidency, and 5 to 25 pages. And so if you go online to Locofo Chaps, L-O-C-O-F-O Chaps, you can see all of them. They're all free. Free to download, and you can purchase a copy, but they're all free. And if you have one of those chapbooks in you and you'd like to submit to him, he would be interested in receiving it. So go for it. Anyway, so mine's called We All Saw It Coming. I'm going to read 2 poems from it. The first poem I'm going to read is called Ways of Seeing Karachi, and it's the picture that's on the cover. And so this is the picture, and in the poem I'll explain kind of how I see that picture. Ways of Seeing Karachi. I become interested in Karachi, Ludovico Karachi, Bolognese contemporary of Shakespeare, early Baroque artist, cousin of Agostino and Annibale, whose 1612 painting, Body of St. Sebastian, thrown into the Cloaca Maxima, is a masterpiece of the frozen moment. Sebastian is limp in a sheet, supported by muscular soldiers. His hands hang down, his eyes are shut. Is he asleep? More likely unconscious. After all, he's about to be thrown into the great sewer of Rome. Unless one rotates the image, then he becomes beautifully vertical, his dreaming body like a sleeping bird floating in warm, soft air. Then the closed fists and flexed forearms of the executioners are seen impotently attempting to hold him down, but nothing human can prevent his rise. And I'm going to finish with the title poem called We All Saw It Coming. We all saw it coming. The snakes in ascendance, the dark satanic milling around, the troops of the nouveau greedy, the safety nets on fire, the cesspool of superiority flooding the brazen stage. We all saw it coming, the Pete Moss racists, the neonatal Nazis, King Lear, Queen Get Rude, the bully trident planted, the ratcheting down of sense. We all saw it coming, the tide of crude insurgents, complacency swept away, virtue's camel toe exposed, the nipple slip of decency, the fondling of the tit of turpitude, the gangbang of the plebiscite. We all saw it coming. I don't mean we. I don't mean we all saw it coming. I mean I. I saw it coming and did nothing. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was fantastic. Good. Let's give Bill another hand, please.